Big money for Jarrett Allen. Was the Cavs offseason enough to contend in the Eastern Conference, plus new deals for Precious Achiuwa, Luke Canard? The Grizzlies actually good, and the Knicks are definitely about to make a trade. Plus, Jason Tatum played, and Joel Embiid didn't, and USA still rolled. We have a ton to get to on Locked On NBA today. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of Locked On NBA, where we talk about the latest and greatest from around the association, and somehow it's August, the worst month on the NBA calendar. Normally, the least stuff happens transactionally. There's no games. It's boring. And yet this year, on the first day, a big extension, some new signings. Team USA is playing. Thank you, Olympics, for filling our August gap. We have a lot to get to today. And starting with the biggest news of the day out of Cleveland, Jarrett Allen, the subject of some trade chatter previously, signs a 3-year, $90+ million extension to stay with the Cavs. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Grizzlies and Knicks new moves and Team USA smoking South Sudan without 0 minutes for 2 MVPs ago. Joel Embiid as Jason Tatum plays. I'm Tony East. I host Locked On Pacers. With me today from Locked On Nuggets, it's Swipa Cam. Swipa, where can you get $90 million? What did you think of Jarrett Allen getting this deal from the Cavs before we dive into Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good deal for him. I think he's one of the best defensive centers in the league. You know, he's a sneaky good offensive player for them because he's a really good play finisher, really good rim runner, and he has a deadly floater, which a lot of people might be sleep on a little bit, like his ability to get that little floater off from 6 feet from really any part of the court around the rim. And on top of that, you know, I think you just need bigs that are good rim deterrents, and especially in the Eastern Conference where they're starting to get more guard heavy with Damian Lillard go over there. Then you get Jalen Brunson, obviously Tyrese Maxey, and then you have Derek White, Drew Holiday, but then you have 2 ball creators with the Celtics and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You need players like Jarrett Allen on your roster. And so for them, they're small in some other places on the court at the guard spot. So how do you maximize having 2 small guards? Give Jarrett some money. And I think this is the way to lock up, again, an all-star center that is going to be one of the best plus players in the league. You know, I think Jarrett Allen's probably a top 40-ish player in the NBA right now. And so, I mean, honestly, this deal is probably a little bit of a discount given how much you're actually getting from him. But good deal for him. You know, he's a really good player. He's younger than people realize as well. So this is probably going to play out good, you know, for the rest of the future for him.
I think over the last 2 years, we've seen the center market really settle in. Brook Lopez gets $24 million a year. Nick Claxton gets 25. Porzingis at about 30. There was someone else this summer who got about 30 million. Oh, Isaiah Hartenstein gets about 30, right? So yeah, Jarrett Allen is probably better than everybody but Porzingis that I just said. So it makes sense that he would get about the most of everybody that I just said. Good starting centers cost a good chunk of change. So I think the price is fine and tradable if you're looking for a very good two-way center as any team. And so if you keep a good player on a tradable contract, I have nothing bad I can say about that, right? I think the Cavs, if they knew Jarrett Allen would accept this, should offer it to him. And then you zoom out and you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers and you look for their new players that they have from last year. The answer is none. they have none. They have Jalen Tyson, who they picked 20th in the draft, and he had a really good summer league. I really like what he can do for them as kind of a do-it-all wing type. And the rest of their team is exactly the same as last year. Their big move was the coaching change. Kenny Atkinson, hell of a coach. What he did with those old Brooklyn Nets teams with D'Lo and Karras and Jarrett Allen, funnily enough, was fantastic. He dug that team out of the mud. So I really wonder, and I think this will be an interesting conversation, because this is always kind of how the order of events goes for teams that fit okay but not great. First, they try to change the coach, then they change the team. So maybe they'll be great. Maybe Kenny Atkinson can make this click. They have an All-NBA guard. They have great talent. But they extended Mobley, they extended Mitchell, they extended Allen. What does this add up to? Are they actually going to be better next year? Or are they going to be in a similar spot next summer looking for the next move?
I mean, some of this is, are you banking on health? You know, maybe if Donovan Mitchell is available with Jarrett Allen versus the Boston Celtics, it's a little bit different of a series. I don't think they win that series, but I think from an organizational standpoint, you can understand that they're basically going to look at this and say, look, we've been the 4th and 5th seed basically in back-to-back years, and we want to see, can we maximize the team around us? And Donovan Mitchell, you know, all things said about Donovan Mitchell, He's in the conversation for best American player in the sport. I mean, he might not be, but he's in the convo. I mean, he's one of the best scoring guards in the league, paint penetration, shooters, pull-up shooters. He's a really good playmaker as well. So him and Darius Garland being on the roster together, can you get enough defense around those guys? And then really at the 3 position, can he get enough floor spacing? You know, whether it's Wade, whether it's Okoro, whether it's really Karis LeVert in, you know, small lineups or whatever else it is, or, you know, it's just going to be interesting how they shape up in an Eastern Conference where the Orlando Magic might legitimately be the 4th or 5th best team in the conference. So if we go down through this, Tony, Celtics, newly acquired Knicks, the 76ers, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Indiana Pacers, and the Orlando Magic. That's 6 teams. That's your like playoff teams, maybe. And again, depending on how you feel about Indiana, that's 6 locks. So then now you got to fit, how are we going to get the Cleveland Cavaliers in there? Do you outright think with the addition of KCP, you got Jalen Suggs, KCP, Franz Wagner, you got Paolo Banchero, you got Wendell Carter Jr., you got Anthony Black, Mo Wagner. They got a bunch of players on their roster. Gary Harris. Are the Cleveland Cavaliers outright better than the Orlando Magic? And if you can't tell me definitively they are, Tony, then I think now we're talking about a team that's going to be struggling to stay out of the play-in and struggling to make it past the first round. But that's also not a bad thing, because you just still want to be competitive. And so if they didn't see any moves that could immediately upgrade their roster, then it would make sense why they would want to hone in on this roster and just say, hey, we're going to do it again. But right now, I'm going to just look at this and say, look, I mean, I think they need to keep trying to be competitive, and, you know, you want to keep the continuity going, but I just can't see the ceiling of this team being super high.
Obviously, a lot has changed roster-wise in the East. But people, you know, you can bring up the seeding. Like I cover the Pacers, so I say they're the 6th seed, right? Like the difference between the 3 seeded Bucks and the 7 seeded Sixers was 2 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't really reflect anything. Like one game flips and all of a sudden it's way different. So that it matters to say that they were a good seed. They earned the 4th seed. They won their first round series. That's great for the Cavs. But like the East is getting better, and the top 8 specifically, I'm gonna include Miami because I'll never quit.
Yeah, of
Jimmy
course,
and Bam,
Miami always, yeah.
You know, that's like, it's tough. And even the Heat were only 2 games out of the 4 seed, right? Like it's going to be tricky. So maybe Kenny Atkinson is enough, right? And if you are a Cavs fan, listen to this, you are saying or screaming at us, we were so unhealthy last year. We were working in Niang. We added this Tyson kid on the wing, right? LeVert's good, and he might play well in a contract year. And like, I hear all that, and Mobley will definitely be better because he's young, and young players get better. Like, that's all true. That's all going to happen. And yet the East also got better, and they added, again, no new NBA players. So it's going to be fascinating. Last year, the thing that always jumps out about the Cavs and makes them tricky to me is there are combos of their big core 4 that are awesome and better from a net rating perspective than all 4 together, right? Like they had that stretch of tons of injuries where Mobley was out and Garland was out, and they were just wrecking. They were absolutely wrecking with just Mitchell and Allen, right? And they've had good stretches with lots of, you know, different duos. The Mobley-Garland pairing last year had a plus 10.8 net rating, right? Like without the other 2 stars on the floor. Like that's crazy good, right? So if it comes to fruition again with a new head coach that they're better with 2 or 3 of those 4 out there, and they're, like you said, fighting for that 4 through 7 range and getting out of the play-in, is this actually a good summer? Maybe. They have all their good players for a long time and can make trades with them now, but you know, what are you building toward or off of as the Cavs, I think, is a fair question to ask.
Yeah, I also think the question is, what is the alternative? Like, what would be the other side of that equation? So we have Evan Mobley. He's a blue chip prospect for us. We got Donovan Mitchell. He's a blue chip prospect for us. I think now Jarrett Allen's a blue chip. Really, the only player on the roster I think they would consider trading is Darius Garland. But what is the return on Darius going to be? Am I going to get a bona fide wing back that I can utilize in a very high level way? We just traded a lot of our picks for Donovan Mitchell. Now they still have stuff they can access, but that would be the other question for me. Now, Tony, if they came away this offseason and said, we got Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, new deal. We're going to get Donovan Mitchell back on a new deal, and we're going to trade Darius Garland and whatever for another wing, like a good wing, a good solid wing defender and a corner 3-point specialist. You would feel a little different about their offseason. But I just don't know if that deal was out there for them right now, because on the other end, who can take back a small offensively inclined point guard that's not going to be an asset for your team defensively because now you're starting getting into I think the D'Angelo Russell kind of style of basketball where you need to have like just some defenders around him. So, Darius is a really good player. Donovan's obviously an all-NBA player. Evan's a special defender, getting even better offensively. And then Jarrett's a really special defender, good floater shooter. So they have a core. They're going to be competitive, but can they stay healthy when it matters is the question.
For sure. And you're right to say that we can't criticize them for moves that we don't even know about, right? I don't know what trade offers they got for anybody. Obviously, before the extension, there would have been questions about the length of Allen's contract and what that means for trades, but now that's gone, right? So I don't have to think about that as much. I think the natural question would be, is Brandon Ingram, does he satisfy the stuff you just said? I say no. I'm not very much an Ingram guy. He's a good player. He would have made them better, but what's the price? Does that actually matter to them? So if there wasn't anything out there, keeping your guys on tradable deals does make sense, but now they have to, with the new coach, be better this year. Speaking of moves, two smaller ones that I think matter a lot have happened in the last 2 days. Precious Achiuwa back to the Knicks. It doesn't matter on the court as much as you think. And Luke Kenndard to the Grizzlies matters more than you think on the court. We're going to talk about those coming up here on Locked On NBA. We have to very quickly take a break to talk about FanDuel. I love sports. I never want them to stop. But in the summer, the playoffs have wound down. In the NHL, it's over. In the NBA, it's August. We're a month removed from a lot of that fun stuff. The sports aren't sportsing like we want. Baseball's the only thing on. The Olympics are great. WNBA is on pause for a couple weeks. Thankfully, FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do, open the FanDuel app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up every customer with a boost or a bonus every single day. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer with a daily booster bonus on FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. We're back here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen should be Locked On Nuggets, because Swipa will be there, and you can hear about Russell Westbrook, a former MVP, trying to add some juice to the 2 times ago champions looking to find a bench identity. We will not be talking about the Nuggets here. We'll be talking about 2 teams that made other moves very recently. In fact, both in the last 24-ish hours. And I would like to start with the move that I think is not getting enough buzz for the wrong reasons. Swipa, that is Precious Achiuwa re-signed with the Knicks. A little boring. I get that people are going to wonder, why is he talking so much about that? 1 year, $6-ish million for Precious Achiuwa. If you look at the New York Knicks and their salaries, though, they have done a wonderful job by keeping Achiuwa of setting themselves up for another trade during the season. It matters a great deal to me that they were able to get in another player with a salary like that, because now with Achiuwa in the door and some other smaller salaries, right? They have this core at the top: Anunoby, Randall, Brunson, Bridges, Hart, Mitchell Robinson, DiVincenzo, and maybe you could count Deuce McBride in there. Those guys are all going to play all the time. That's a great top 8 or 9. But now with Achiuwa in the door, they can make a package of like Achiuwa, McBride, and Keita Bates-Diop and take back like a $16 million player without disrupting any of their top 8. And they still have extra firsts after their trade. I think they have one from Detroit and one from Washington. One of those is not that real. But still, that doesn't even include the guy they just picked in the first round or Tyler Kolek, because they picked the second round. They have the juice to get something else. And it would not have been possible if they couldn't have gotten Achiuwa on a salary that, 1, is tradable, and 2, lets them stack. And he, according to reporting, waived his right to not be traded this year on his 1-year deal. So 2 things. 1, Precious Achiuwa is kind of good. Like, he's good on the glass. He's a good young player. 2, I think that this is not being talked about enough because it sets the Knicks, who already have improved the summer, up to once again make a move to improve during the season.
OG Anunoby, Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, Mitchell, Dante. Just that alone is a very good top 7. And then you're including McBride in that. That's a good top 8. Precious, that's a really good top 9. I actually think that the New York Knicks have had one of the best off seasons in recent memory. Even though they had to overpay for the value of OG Anunoby, the value he brings to that team is important, and they also have the room to do it. And then get Jalen Brunson to take over $100 million less as of right now in this deal, and to get it back eventually. I do think the only question I have about the New York Knicks is, what will they do with Julius Randle? Is Julius Randle the player they want to take into the playoffs to be their potential second, maybe in a better situation, third option offensively, that they can trust. Because right now, I believe in Julius Randle's playoff career, if I remember correctly, he has like a 46 true shooting in his playoff career. And he's a ball stopper. Now, he's a good rebounder. He plays very hard. I think there's a lot of things he does add to the game. But is he going to be good enough? And will he be able to defer enough to be able to utilize the fact that they have a bunch of wings on the roster, even right now? Tony, if I told you they're going to roll out a lineup, Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and then putting whoever you want, Mitchell Robinson at that 5 spot, or they want to go even smaller, put OG at the 5. So then you got Mikal, Jalen, and then you put Josh Hart in the game with Dante DiVincenzo. They're gonna have so much flexibility in what they want to do, and maybe Julius Randle can excel at that small ball 5. But I think the Knicks, man, they're so primed, not just to make another move, but as is to compete. Honestly, call me crazy. They could have maybe the 2nd or 3rd best record in the NBA if they're healthy, because they have the depth to do that. And that's going to be really important.
The depth matters a ton. A Tibbs team with depth that's scary. That's a dangerous squad. To answer your musing, 46.2% is Julius Randle's playoff true shooting percentage. His career high best postseason was 48.5% in 2022-23. Not good. Like, naturally in my head, now that Brunson has established like me ball all the time, they need a second kind of ball guy. DiVincenzo was good at it in the playoffs. Hart was good enough at it. But if Randle can be a juicer who can handle, that's great, because Brunson should have it all the time. Like, I watched Pacers Knicks, obviously. I was at every game. And there were very few moments it happened, but there were times that Brunson could not do it. Like, he couldn't just flip the ball up and in or set guys up. Like, if they had another guy, that'd be awesome. And so maybe they think they got it now, but maybe that's what Deuce McBride could be. Maybe that's what they trade the Achiuwa package I have made up for. Maybe it's what they have to trade Julius Randle for at some point. But I'm not like soured on his fit with this team, but I'm with you. But I have questions about it. But I do think you're right that you can count Achiuwa as the backup center and say they have a sick top 9, plus like Sims, Campaign, Tyler Kolek, and their first round pick. Like, they're loaded, and they have ammo to, if, like, let's say that you're right, they get to the trade deadline with the 2nd or 3rd best record, they have the ammo to get something else, which is like a good up to $18 million player ish. Like, that's a remarkably good team. I think that the Precious Achiuwa signing is good stuff. The other one that happened today, Luke Kenard, he's back. Yep. The Grizzlies need shooting so bad, man. It's great. Like, that team is loaded. I think people are sleeping on the Grizzlies. But they are not a good shooting team. They haven't ever really been a great shooting team. But they needed Luke Kenard. Like, Bane can really shoot. Ja can't that well. He's okay. Santi Aldama kind of can, I guess. They just needed more of it.
GG Jackson's developing jumper.
I don't know if G's going to have the ball too much for the Grizzlies. Like, they just needed shooting really bad, right? And to keep their only shooter, I know it sounds stupid because he was probably never going anywhere else, but especially since they got Marcus Smart in the door, I think keeping Canard's a big deal, and I think the Grizzlies are being slept on. I think they're going to be pretty damn good next year.
Yeah, the Grizzlies are going to be competing for a top 3 or 4 seed again if everybody's healthy. Ja Morant. So this is my only question, Tony, because I love putting teams together in my head. That's like one of my favorite things about hoops. Ja Morant, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane,
great,
Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey, lock it in.
That's my guess as well.
Luke Kennard, and then GG Jackson. Brandon Clark will be back this year, hopefully feeling a lot better. A year and some change now removed from his ACL or his Achilles injury. So they're going to have like a nice rotation. But the question I think for them is just going to be, are they going to play small? Like, are they going to guaranteed going to start Ja, Smart, and start Bane with that? Because Bane's about 6'5", something like that. So that's the only thing. But I think Zach Edey will make that a lot easier, just because he's so big. And then now Jaren Jackson Jr. can excel in that Anthony Davis role, in 2020, Anthony Davis, where he's an off-ball defender like he did with Steven Adams was there. And his rim protection is going to be incredible. So, look, Josh going to come back with a vengeance this year. I'm predicting Josh going to be like 27, 5, and 7.
He's going to be awesome.
Yeah, he's going to go
I agree.
crazy again. And he's probably going to shoot 35% from 36% from 3, 51% from 2, let's say 81% from the line, and he's going to lead the NBA in paint points for his guard again, probably like 16 paint points a game. So they're going to be dangerous, and they're just going to need to make sure, though. I think GG's development is going to be really important for them. Marcus Smart and Josh probably going to be really good. Marcus Smart, Bane, and Ja will probably be good. But you're right. Luke Kenndard, man, like he needs to be a sniper this year. When you come off the bench, and especially if we're going to put, JJ at the 5, or we're going to keep Zach Edey at the 5, take JJ out, we're going to go a little bit smaller, maybe GG at the 4, Brandon Clark at the 4, or something like that. They're just going to need floor spacing on that unit. And again, when John Morant's in the game, it's all hands on deck. Like everyone's looking at one person. So if you can convert off of those drive kickouts that he does, look, Luke can have a really good year this year.
Ja wasn't even at 100% last year, and in his 9 games, he still averaged 21, 8, and 6. Like, golly, this dude's amazing. Last year, Luke Kenndard shot 45% from deep. They had 2 other guys over 40%. One's gone, and Jacob Gilliard. The other one's Scottie Pippen Jr., who's pretty dang good. But like, they don't, outside of Bane, they don't have a ton of like really high level shooters. They have a bunch of either high volume or just okay guys. So I think it really matters that they have Canard. And I think the interesting thing too is like they could start Smart at the 2 and then have him be the backup 1. Same with Jaren going from 4 to 5. They have Santi Aldama too, who I think you should have included in your rotation because I think he's awesome, but he's so thin. He's kind of a 4-5. Like they have a lot of guys who, and Vince Williams too is awesome as a defender last year. They have a lot of guys who are positionally versatile and should play a lot. And they have a lot of these awesome lineup combos, but they need shooting to make it all work. And so keeping Luke Kenndard, to me, it's such a small thing. It was so late into the summer, was a huge deal for the Grizzlies. And I am penning. Come back to this, people, next year into the top 6 in the West. They're going to be a playoff, not play-in team and be very scary next year. I have no more Grizzlies thoughts unless you do.
No, I don't think that's unfair at all. I think top 6 is more than fair.
We talk about rotations with the Grizzlies. Speaking of rotations, Team USA. It's all anybody can talk about. Who didn't play because Jason Tatum did play in their win over South Sudan today. We'll talk about that and who should Steve Kerr be playing to close this one out today. Back here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen today. Check out Locked On Grizzlies or Locked On Knicks for your second listen to hear more about those signings that we just discussed from the local experts who know their teams the best. I'm sure the Knicks guys have already been all over Precious Achiuwa, Luke Canard. Makes a lot of sense. And the Grizzlies probably have to make another move to get out of the luxury tax. Let's talk Team USA. They smoked South Sudan, as they should have when they originally played South Sudan. 103-86 the final. It wasn't even that close. They were up 20. For much of the second half, I can tell you about who was great. It was Bam. It was LeBron. It was KD. KD in the Olympics is unstoppable. What everyone's going to want to talk about is the same thing they were talking about after the first game. Jason Tatum did not play in the USA's opener of the Olympics when they destroyed Serbia. Neither did Tyrese Halliburton, but not as controversial there. No. In this game, as Steve Kerr said, he's going to play Jason Tatum, and he did. Jason Tatum started in this game. We'll get to actual stats and production later, but Jason Tatum started at the 3, and the way they made it work is Anthony Davis started at the 5. So now it was much easier for them to play 2 guards and 2 forwards with the bench. So they had a bench front court of Ant, KD, and Bam. And the guy who didn't play instead, because Halliburton got some spot minutes in both halves, was Joel Embiid, who was starting every game prior to this one and gets no minutes. Maybe this was the rest thing because they're going to need him against a pretty tiny Puerto Rico team in their next game. Maybe this is a decision they're actually making going forward. They flowed pretty well, scored 103, got the 3s up, took 30 of them. What do you think of this decision? Is it right? Is it wrong? Who to you shouldn't be playing? Should it be matchup dependent? I'm leaving this very open with my many questions to you, but I thought it was fast. I did not predict it would be Embiid. I thought the guy who would not play to get Tatum in there would be Devin Booker, and he was good. Booker was in this game, so I was very intrigued by this decision.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the formula of Steve Kerr and Eric Spoelstra right now, they have been committed to what is the best basketball fit we can put together. Last game, Jason Tatum was the odd man out with Tyrese Halliburton. But I think if you look at the basketball reasons, even though I think Tatum should have played, Tatum is like a jack of all trades player. He does everything well, but he doesn't do anything, I think, relative to the other players on the team at a high enough level to where, like LeBron, better on-ball playmaker, offensive player. KD, better pull-up shooter, score. Steph Curry, bam, bam. And I think in this game in particular, when Tatum gets in this game, you could even see the flow with LeBron and Durant and how like kind of the shot profiles are breaking down. And then Embiid, he played because they played Serbia, and Serbia has Joker, and so they were trying to play big. In this game, it's not that they were small, but there's a different kind of athleticism they have. There are a lot of athletes. They run, they're long. That's what Steph struggled 1-9 today, I think, in part because of that. So Embiid is just not as needed as Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis, who are rangy, long, and fast, tall athletes that can play a different style of defense versus that team. So South Sudan is a really well-coached team, and they play like it. In the U.S. today, I think with Embiid, they just show that every player in our arsenal is going to be on a case-by-case basis, except for LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis. And then if you want to include maybe, I think Devin Booker has played so well so far in this run because he's such a freaking amazing off-ball scorer. Like, and even coming off those little curls at the nail, hitting those mid-range shots, those one dribble pull-ups, like he just offers so much to this team. So he might even be included in that. And I think that people just have to realize, like, Tayshaun Prince was an all-star player. Michael Redd, all-star player. They didn't play every game back in the day for Team USA because they were mostly supposed to be there to give you very specific looks. And I think Tatum, I think even Embiid, I think Hallie, those players are just going to be players that are going to get that kind of a look. Now, Embiid is just, he just is not moving the same way as Anthony Davis is. And you see a stark athletic difference, but I think a lot of that Embiid's just had to deal with a lot of injuries. He's just a bigger man, but he's also a better scorer than Anthony Davis. They just haven't needed a lot of face-up scoring from the center position. So Embiid is going to play and start, I think, versus Puerto Rico. But I think Tatum, I think Hallie, and honestly, Anthony Edwards, he's good. But the thing is, Derek White and Drew Holiday are such tenacious on-ball defenders.
Awesome. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm going to keep playing them too.
So a couple things. One is that you were talking about the guys who are locks to play. And you nailed it with the last two. So a team of just like 12, picture a team of 12 LeBrons, right? Like it wouldn't shoot that well. It'd be awesome, obviously. But like wouldn't shoot very well, for example, or wouldn't be super fast in transition or anything. LeBron's an amazing player. It's just like you need role guys who do specific things. And Drew and Derek White do those things so well. Like they are awesome. And the best Team USA has looked to me, even through the USA Basketball Showcase up to now, has been when all four of Derek White, Drew Holiday, Anthony Davis, and Bam are on the floor. No one can score. Like it does not matter it could be you or me as the fifth guy. Like guys can't score against that group. And Drew's making shots and passes, and Derek White's making shots. I don't think he missed today. So like they are almost locks to me because you need role players on a team with stars to be awesome. So my lock list is a little longer than yours. Mine would be Bron, AD, Steph, KD, Bam, and the Celtics guys. So then I only have like 3 or 4 guys who are my guys. It'd be Tatum, Booker, Tyrese Haliburton, and Joel Embiid. But Booker's been great. He's actually defending pretty well. I encourage people to watch Devin Booker on defense. And you nailed the short, like curl stuff. Like he's so good at getting open. But when today specifically, he'd get that ball and like read the game really. He had 6 assists. He led them in assists. So he is closer to lock than out. So I think every game it's going to be probably like Haliburton, Tatum, Embiid, and maybe Ant Edwards are the 4 guys that are considered for the rotation. And someone has to be out every time. I would guess Haliburton's the lowest end of that every time because everybody can create their shot. There's less value in a guy who can create for others. But it is not that huge of a deal. They've been steamrolling everybody, but it is a tough decision they have to make. And I think to your point, it will depend on what they need or who they're playing on how they decide who it is. All right. We're out of time, Mr. Swipa. Thank you for filling in today. If you were expecting Nick Angstad and Pat the Designer, everybody, we're sorry that you didn't get their lovely faces this week or however long you like seeing them. Tomorrow, you will get the return of normal scheduling with Wes Goldberg and Adam Mares talking about the latest and greatest from around the association. Check out Locked On Nuggets with Cam, whose internet just died, or Locked On Pacers with myself for more on those two teams. If you want to hear more of our voices, back tomorrow here on Locked On NBA. Till then, everybody have a wonderful day.